So I'll begin with a question from Montreal. OK, de Paul Bourque. Une question qui nous vient de Montréal, de Paul Bourque. Donc, c'était des questions qui s'adressaient aux trois conférenciers, mais on a compris aussi avec la dernière présentation qu'on a compris les critères qui ont mené au choix du système léger sur rail plutôt que celui du SRB. Mais pour les deux autres villes, peut-être plus expliquer quels sont les critères qui ont été utilisés pour choisir entre le système sur pneumatique ou encore le système sur rail. How did you choose? How was the criteria for choosing one technology instead of another?
Well, I think I said a little bit earlier, but for Ottawa, it was a different time. We were much further ahead of the game in getting our BRT and transit system in. And as Darshpreet had identified, there is a benefit to light rail versus the BRT, but you also have the densities that support that. And we just didn't have that at the time when we put our BRT in place back in the 80s. So, but we knew that we would, based on the growth and being the capital. So we built our system so that it could accommodate light rail over a longer term. So, of course, technology's changed, and it was built, based on the engineering at the time. And while engineers are pretty good at math, sometimes they miss it. Sorry, I just shot at my two engineers here. But the point is, when we knew that it would come, and so we knew light rail would be a thing. Now the question is, where you would have your system north-south, east-west, all of the above. And when we got to that point, it was not, for us, it wasn't a decision versus the technology of BRT versus LRT. It was a question of whether we go LRT or subway. And for us, we know that the technologies are advancing in LRT to the point where we can take a lot of benefit from an LRT system and have a capacity. The LRT systems, for instance, will be 600. We can expand them over time if we need. A subway system that we were looking at was about 1,100 people. Well, doubling that would take us probably well past 2055, past 2080. Even we might not ever actually need a subway system if we can expand our system appropriately downtown based on the LRT and with streetcars. So in our planning horizon, which is 20 years in our official plan, our transportation master plan, we looked at our growth, we looked at our densities, and we made the decision that LRT was the system that would work for us. And we had already made a decision at some point that we knew some of our routes. So that was Ottawa's story.
Yeah, in Calgary, and I guess like we did things a little bit different. As mentioned in my presentation, like we did LRT very early on. We did LRT starting in the 1980s, and at that time, I was told it was very controversial. Nobody thought it would work. People thought that nobody would ride it, and the opposite happened. It got high use right away, and because of that, the LRT system was just extended further out and further out as new communities developed further out. There would almost be an LRT extension along with it. So we became a bit like Ottawa with the Transaway, victim of our own success with LRT. How our system, as I said, was set up, it's a radial system. So we just have buses circling communities and then just driving everything towards the LRT, and then the LRT taking them downtown. And so why we're looking at doing BRT now is I think it's something that you see in a lot of successful cities with good transportation system, that it's, one solution isn't the be all end all. I think everybody likes LRT. LRT is, they're, they're sexy projects, they're exciting. It gets people excited and perhaps not so much BRT, but I think the two can complement each other very well. And and if BRT is done correct and it's done in the right way, it can be just as efficient as LRT. If you have the dedicated lanes and the dedicated right of way, and you can provide that nice station infrastructure and things like that, it can be just as successful.
I'll just echo what my colleagues are saying. Although LRT is our choice of technology, as you can see, we also are still implementing BRT. And the reason for that was, like I said, there's a financial side to it that you want to make sure you have the best bang for your dollar. But there are sections on our alignment that we figured are perhaps not best suited at this point because of densities or ridership that would justify that high level of investment in light rail. So We were politically asked to go back in 2010 to look at, okay, if 818 is the budget, and we're limited to it, can you do value engineering and look at where do you want to spend the $818 and $818 million? And that's how we came up with this phased approach. We looked at where do we get the best value upfront, and we identified that to be the light rail piece. And then we looked at sections that still need improvement. So the BRT component, we're not just saying it's BRT and leave it alone. We're actually spending $1 million each year to support the planning policies and incentivize developers to come and build transit-oriented development in that section. So we want to make sure that hopefully in 5 years, 10 years, there will be enough development along the BRT piece to justify the ridership that LRT warrants. So we're doing our stage 2 planning to convert it, but our first step for that piece was still BRT. So, it's not just LRT or BRT. You have to look at what are the needs and how you may be limited technology-wise, and then you choose your best course of action based on that.
D'autres questions?
Yes, my question is for Mr. Stephen and Mr. Darshpreet. Excuse me. About the two philosophies that you have for connecting the bike route to the LRT. We have seen for Calgary that we identify points where there is intersection between bike route and LRT. And for Waterloo, it's a lot really bike route just going along. We have seen a picture where the bike route along the LRT. So it seems two different philosophies. I just want to read about this last mile problem for bike LRT connection. Yeah, the last mile connection is, I think it's something a lot of transit agencies struggle with, because like all transit trips, people start out as a pedestrian or someone taking a bike to get to the station, do your trip, and then once you leave the vehicle to continue to your destination. I think one of the things that has helped us in Calgary over the last couple of years is we've undertaken a lot of work in developing planning documents that give us, and not only us, but our design consultants and contractors, guidelines for these other active modes. It's something that we didn't used to have, but we've developed a couple documents about a pedestrian strategy. We have a master bike plan and bike strategy. We obviously have our route ahead, our transit strategy, and we also have a complete streets document, so that any time that we're undertaking work for building new roads or even refurbishing roads, this complete streets document is now our guide, and it's very strong on promoting all of the active modes for biking and walking and transit connections, and making sure we hit those last mile connections, because it's something that I think is very much missed before. I think we're very good at getting people from station to station, but then where they go after that is something that has expanded in scope in our projects, to make sure that people, once they leave the station, they have good accessibility to where they need to go.
The patterns that you saw on the slide that I presented, the objective was to see where people are naturally going. So that's not to mean that we can connect them to the system, but those lines only indicate the trend. So our job right now is to look at, okay, if people do want to go parallel to us, or if they do want to go perpendicular to us, what's the best way for us to connect it to either light rail or another transit system? And that's the effort that our cities are taking right now as part of their station area planning. So as I was mentioning, there's an 800-meter radius that we take at each one of the stops. And the idea is to look at, okay, if these are all the different trends, they may not necessarily connect right now to a transit route. How best can we connect them? They may be parallel. So if they are parallel, what can we do to help them connect to a transit route that will eventually connect them to hopefully light rail? If not, at least to a higher road transit system. So that's the exercise that's underway right now by all three cities, to look at how can these trends best be articulated into a pathway or a network of pathways that can be channelized and connected with the rest of the transit system. I'm not sure if we have answered your question, but yeah.
I don't know why you didn't ask me, but that's all right. Maybe you know. So at the City of Ottawa in stage 1, we had that exact problem, that we were looking at how people connected to the stations and the pathways that are around them. At the time in 2012, the city didn't have a pedestrian and cycling master plan. We only had the transportation master plan, which considered the other modes. But we developed these, and it came out just post-2012. We're in and about that time in development. So working on that in the detailed design on stage 1 and to some painful details and working with our cycling and pedestrian people at what was missed and how people get to the station from distances. For stage 2 right now in the preliminary engineering, and last year actually, we undertook a connectivity study. And we looked at 1.5 kilometers, 600 meters, and 300 meters around every single station. What our transportation master plan said for the roads, where it was being redeveloped, what was happening, the linkages for the cycling routes throughout the city, and then the pedestrian routes, and then said, what are we missing? When we put stations on this grid, how do people get to and from them from their homes? And we just completed in August our consultation with the public on it, asking, we've got everything that we have in plans, we've gone out on site, we've evaluated it from our perspective. Now we need to know how you actually get to the stations in the winter, different seasons, and how you get there. So we've gone through and we're doing that study right now, and we're just getting our results to go back and feed that as a background document to our consortium and the bidding projects to make sure that we have these connections. Because what happens sometimes is you'll forget a whole community. You'll get people onto the road in the station, but nobody from a community around it that's about a kilometer, which is a bike, that last mile that you're talking about, how they're going to get to that station itself. And so that was really important to us to look at that and to hit all those nodes. We may not be able to put all those in place and the sidewalks and all the cycle lanes, but at least we can push back to council and say, here are the key connections we need to do while we're doing this project or shortly thereafter and get them in place. And that's what we've done at the City of Ottawa.
Merci. Je vais y aller avec une question de Montréal. Donc, une question de François Pépin. Le fait que les BRT se rabattent sur les LRT crée des correspondances. Comment éliminer les inconvénients de cette correspondance qui crée du temps d'attente pour les usagers? Donc, how do you manage with the transfer, and how do you get to reduce the number of transfer that are wasting time for the users? It's a question for all the cities.
I guess I'll start the microphone. For Ottawa, because of the BRT system that we've had running for such a long time, and we realize that its transfers are the killer to ridership, the City of Ottawa, OC Transport particularly, instituted a one transfer policy as the ideal for all situations. So our Transitway acted as for a rapid system in any case whatsoever, and we have a feeder bus system that will take you from your bus to the Transitway to downtown in one transfer. So we count getting from the bus to the BRT as your one transfer, hopefully not two as the ideal. We're continuing that into the next system. What we're also doing to aid that is, and this is kind of the opposite of Waterloo, and just because we're a different system and it works differently and every demographics are different, we're trying to implement a fair paid zone. So where you go into a station, no matter where it is, the Transitway today or a future one from your bus, you won't have to swipe a card again. You won't have to do anything else. However, coming into every station now, you will have to go through a fare gate. But we're eliminating that second transfer anywhere we can and hopefully eliminating it to the downtown. But that's our model.
Yeah. As I mentioned with the putting together the route ahead document, we went out and we went around to all the communities and did a lot of citizen engagement to ask them what they want out of their transit system. And transfers was something, yeah, we definitely heard about. Nobody wants to take two transfers, go from bus to LRT to bus to get where they want to go. So it was that information that we got that led into the planning of the four projects that I talked about with these crosstown routes and these transitway systems that are going to provide a direct line to major destinations. You know, just for example, I didn't get to cover it off completely, but for the Southwest BRT project, I said that the connections between the south end and the north end of where that line, as they are right now, are poor transit connections. And it's very true. For someone who, if you're a student who lived in that southwest community and you needed to get to the university, their best transit option right now is to take a bus to the LRT. They take the LRT 3 stops, and then they get on another bus that takes them back in the same direction they just came to go to the university. So taking all of that into account is how we develop these direct connections. And now, with this proposed route of the Southwest BRT and dedicated lanes to make that trip quick, someone who's living in that community wanting to go to school there will be able to do that trip in 20 to 30 minutes, whereas now it would take an hour and a half with transfers. And also the beauty of the Transaway and the BRT system is it's prompted us to take a relook at our existing local route service and how we facilitate those transfers from a local bus service that stops every block to rapid transit, be it BRT or LRT. And with the BRT, with the Transaway, because you can have multiple buses using that infrastructure, we can now maybe facilitate the ease of transfers so that a local route could stop at that station, someone can get off and then connect to the BRT system on the same station, so they don't have to make a very difficult transfer. But that's what we're trying to do to reduce them.
Our approach is pretty similar to Calgary. We're university town. We have University of Waterloo, University of Guelph, Conestoga College. A lot of students move around. So we worked with universities. We worked with neighborhood groups. So we basically approached different neighborhoods all over the region to look at who are champions, who are supportive of rapid transit, so that we can have a dialogue with them, get their feedback, and then let them disseminate the information to the local neighborhoods. Same approach, looked at what is it that they want. Ultimately, I think all transit agencies would like to eliminate transfers, which is not possible, but one is the ideal. And once you know what it is that the public wants from the different zones and different areas within a region, you can then start looking at your bus routing. So, I only showed you the crosstown routes, but we've done the same thing that Calgary is doing, is look at every local route too. See how best you can connect that to either the crosstown lines or connect them directly to the rapid transit line. And we also have some stations where the buses can come and use the same platform that would be used by either BRT or LRT, so that the transition is very easy. It is inevitable that you're still going to have some origin-destination trips that will need more than one trip. You cannot eliminate all. But the goal is that the more you know how people travel throughout the region, you can do your best to modify the routes to see if you can eliminate transfers. But our goal is also to go down to one if we can. But I do know we still have a lot of work to do. We have only implemented few crosstown routes. We have to implement many more. Once you start going towards a path where you're providing higher order service, there's never an end to it. You're always going to be modifying one section next year, and funds will go to the other section. But at least it's a positive step. If our goal is one and we're working towards it, then that's what matters more than the actual number that you have.
How important it is to go to public consultation before the project and during the project, or even give the choice to the population to have BRT or LRT, like seems the case in Waterloo when you start the project? How important is it?
Well, in Waterloo, communication is very important. We're only about 570,000 people region-wide right now, so we're not a big metropolitan city by any means. It's a big project for small communities, so the focus is only on the project. It took us 6 years, and we went and used every media tool we possibly could. We did a lot of workshops, so if we had a debate over whether this route or this route, and if it was impacting a certain neighborhood, then we would do a workshop and focus on those areas and get the input from those residents. What is it that they want? And it takes time. Unfortunately, there's always political push to move projects forward, but at the same time, you have to make sure that the public is behind it, and to get and garner that support, it takes time. So communication is very important. There's no such thing as over-communicating. I still have sometimes people that'll come to me and say, I didn't know light rail was going in front of my house. I'm like, this is 8 years now, and you still don't know what the project is. So, there's always room for improvement to engage the different communities. One of the best tools that I found when we were doing initial planning was storefronts. people sometimes don't have time to come after work and come for a public information session that's happening between 6 or 9 in the night. They have other things to do. So we opened up these storefronts in many different neighborhoods, 24/7. They would be manned by staff. And then anyone can walk in, ask you about the project, what's happening. And what happened was the moment we opened these storefronts, all the businesses were interested. And they would come because it only takes a few minutes to walk to a neighboring storefront, walk in and ask about the project. Next day, the same individual would come with 3, 4 more people that he knows or she knows. So I found them to be very useful. Yes, it cost us time and money, but it was very helpful for getting to know the local businesses, to get to know the local residents, and giving them the opportunity 24/7 to be able to come to a place where they can ask and speak to a person. This is not just going to a page and looking at information, but having a one-on-one dialogue with an individual and asking questions that you would be comfortable asking. So we've tried everything through, during planning, during construction is just as important. As I said, you're impacting them now. This is real impact. You're shutting down a street, you're shutting down a service, water's out for 24 hours or it's out for 14 hours. You need to let businesses know that it's coming so they can plan for it. They need to plan for their scheduling. If it's a shop that's getting deliveries, if you don't tell them a month ahead that you're going to close on this date, where's the delivery going to be? So you have to make sure that they're fully informed. And then even after, because now it's not the project construction time, now it's actual you're running. You have to inform the public how they should be driving while the light rail is running right beside them. You have to inform kids through school so that they understand how best to use a transit system. So communication never ends. It's just it's different phases, different types of communication, but the more we can do, the better.
I guess I won't say much more than that because everything that you mentioned, Calgary is doing as well. With our projects, we have storefronts that allow people to come in and get information about the project. We continue to update project websites, and same, put every document that gets published as part of the project, put it online that anybody can go take a look at and read. We try to be very upfront and transparent about everything that we're doing, and that's just from the pre-planning stages all the way through to construction. So we are doing the same things. I guess when it comes to the systems themselves, again, the BRT, LRT, a lot of that, can come down to the political will. So it's the neighborhoods trying to champion their councillor, and the councillor trying to champion those projects of whether it should be a BRT or LRT is sometimes the case. But we're doing lots of things right now in terms of engagement. With the new LRT line that we're in the middle of planning right now, which is the Green Line, which will be a new 40-kilometer low-floor LRT route that will hit the very north central of Calgary to go down to the southeast point of Calgary. And the project team working on that is in the middle of doing these design charrettes. So they are going into the communities with the station area maps, and they're looking at things like how do you connect to the station. So they're trying to really harness the local knowledge and bringing in the maps, getting them to draw it on these maps. Here, this is where you need to go from here. Asking for their input on design options for architecture, for station design, things like that, and really trying to get the ideas from that community on what that station is going to be. Because really, at the end of the day, the station that is in that community, it belongs to that community. So we're trying to facilitate something that they can actually provide input and have their own community personal touch on it.
Thanks. Yes, I agree. The one thing that I will add to that, maybe two things at the most, is having consultation with the public early gets a lot of buy-in, and particularly with community associations, business improvement areas, or strong councillors and people. And Darshpreet was showing me that he even has champions in his communities that produced, I'm not going to say propaganda, but I'm going to say they produced flyers for his system that they went out and they're supporting it. And the city of Ottawa has done the same thing. We've gone out to local people in the area, and it's important to get the leaders of these communities to understand what you're doing and then get their thoughts on it. And so we actually put on our website these people and the leaders and the champions of the system so they can go out and they can help explain it. If we can if we can get somebody on site who's a leader of a group understanding what we're trying to do and be transparent and open about and why we're doing it, to translate some complicated, detailed information in a simple way, then they can help us send that message. And doing that early at the front is I think, crucial for developing your system to help relieve the battles that some of my colleagues here have had. We had a little bit of an easier ride on the stage 2. I mean, well, we did have one of the programs canceled, but we got a new one back. So, but it does stop some of your programs if you can get the champions of the community there.
Le temps file, on va avoir le temps pour une dernière question. Oui?
I just had one question about when you plan all those BRTs and LRTs, do you also plan to reduce the lanes dedicated to motor vehicles to reduce traffic? Maybe, I mean, to maybe create congestion so that people actually would be more enticed to use the public transportation.
So for it depends, and it certainly depends on the project. We know with the 17th Avenue Southeast BRT that I talked about, where we're having the BRT lanes in the middle of the street, that we are going to make traffic worse. Like it's just a matter of fact of the nature of the project to completely redo the entire street. And as I mentioned, we're doing it with active modes as well. So we're doing wider sidewalks and boulevards. We're going to be putting in a bike lane, and then we'll have the transit lanes in the middle. And you want to fit all of that stuff into one street. What ends up suffering a little bit is the single occupancy vehicle. And there's definitely two schools of thought. Like, some people are all for that. People who love active modes, they think that's great. But we definitely hear from the single occupant vehicle users as well too, that you're making things worse. I wouldn't say that we're purposely doing it to try and convert people to get out of their cars and get into a bus, but just by nature of that, I think if for a long time, in a lot of cities in North America, the car has dominated, and it's refreshing to see. And being an engineer planner in Calgary, it's very exciting right now that we're undertaking all these initiatives. We did a big cycle track program that has become very successful. I mentioned we are launching a pedestrian strategy, and we are just gung-ho with all of these transitway projects. And I think just by nature of it, people will start to see, the single occupant user will start to see that, maybe it will be a lot better to take the bus or ride my bike than, sitting in traffic congestion.
There's not much more to add. Fundamentally, the objective is to provide capacity. And, depending on the project and where you are, in our case, it's the same thing. You're providing now a higher capacity mode in the middle of the road, so you have to take traffic lanes away. But overall, you're still providing more capacity. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with a lot of technical information, but a single traffic lane, can take about 700 vehicles an hour. And that's, a nice flowing traffic lane. A light rail, you can keep on adding trains, can take thousands. So yes, you have taken one traffic lane away, but you have added a transit mode that can carry thousands. So ultimately, you have increased the capacity of that corridor. Yes, it may make it a little congested for those who still choose to drive on that corridor, but you have met the objective that should be there, which is increased capacity. As my colleague said, it's just an after effect of that for certain areas where you have taken lanes away, it will be a little more congested. But the reality is, we're pretty adaptable. We don't continue to go down the same road every day knowing that I'm going to wait half hour. I will find alternatives that are just as convenient for me if I'm not transferring to transit. We have seen that during construction, and you guys will too, because construction is the best example when you see how people adapt. Because you make it so disruptive, now they have no choice but to look at alternatives. And when you bring back the system live again, those who are still interested in driving now have their routes. They're not going to come back. But those that are willing to take transit as an option, or at least give it a try, you will start seeing them. The existing demand will always use transit. That's there. Our goal is to bring these other individuals who are sort of borderline and may potentially change their mode of transportation. So it's not a huge ask. It's a very small ask, but unfortunately, it's a big change for everyone to get to that point.
So in Ottawa, we've bought into a new complete street system, which is leveling the field of transportation. We've actually flipped our modal share on our streets, and so our multimodal level of service used to be trucks first, cars, transit, cyclists, pedestrians. And you'd have your A level for the trucks, and it'd go down from there for everyone else, but that was your priority list. We've just flipped that model where we say it has to be A for pedestrians, and then you're seeking down to cyclists, transit, cars, and then trucks. And so when we're putting a street back, which we're doing for several portions of it, to do our light rail, whether we're tunneling or we're going beside it, we're returning that street to a complete street concept, which means better sidewalk facilities, cycle tracks and lanes, and ensuring that lane speed reduction happens. And we're going through a battle internally actually right now, talking about reduction in speeds in some of these areas where we're having transit stations, because they will be on existing arterial roads, but they're also a transit station. And it's not safe to have speeds of 70 kilometers an hour going beside stations where we have massive amounts of people being dropped off. So it's a battle internally with the city as well, because we have traffic engineers that want to make sure the traffic moves, but we also want to make sure it's safe for this, and this is a new direction that we're taking. So we are reducing lane widths, for instance, on Stage 2 on the west end. There's a plan in our transportation master plan of 4-lane arterial for Richmond Road, and we're bringing it down to 2 lanes. And that's really tough to the people in the area as an arterial. It's only right now a 13-meter right-of-way, which is tiny, and it's 3 lanes in areas that goes up to 20 meters and shrinks down. We're going to bring it to 18, but in that 18, you're going to get new cycle facilities, and you're going to get a wider sidewalk, so the road lanes are only going to be 7 meters of pavement, and the rest is going to be facilities for pedestrians and cyclists. So we're trying to promote in these neighborhoods and avenues where we're putting the stations in alternative modes of cycling along our corridors and lines, and reducing the volume, or at least making it an even playing field now where cars had dominated for the past 30, 40 years.
Merci, c'est ce qui va conclure la période de questions, donc la conférence aussi. Thank you guys for your presence here. Thank you for sharing your inspiring experiences.